Hey people. So I'm working on something that's kind of big and it's really, really time consuming. Two things actually. And my last video aged so beautifully and I've been hoping that I could upload one of these two things sooner. It just didn't work out to be the case. And because I don't have the heart to delete my last video, it was so personal, it was so important to me, and I don't have the heart to get rid of it. But I do think I need to have something else on my profile since what has happened in the last 6 months has happened. So, yeah. While we wait for something better, here's what I have today. There is an epidemic spreading across the YouTube algorithm. A deep misunderstanding of CrashBox. I first noticed this in 2024 when I was crafting my own senior thesis about how children's media impacts how children view morality. YouTube was the wind beneath my wings as I searched for kids show clips and episodes to try and help me in my research. CrashBox was no doubt one of my favorite shows growing up, and I didn't want to do this project without including it. Spoiler alert, it only got a mention in the intro. Airing from 1999 to 2000, CrashBox aimed to educate children by gamifying the learning experience of math, science, language, history, and critical thinking. While trying to find useful clips, I was often met with YouTube videos labeling it as disturbing, lost media, or freaky. I was so disappointed. Subjectively, it wasn't any of those things to me. Objectively, it could only be two. My ultimate litmus test of so-called weird people is their reaction to CrashBox. As a true fan, I get overwhelmingly pissed off seeing other YouTubers refer to the show as disturbing lost media. No, you didn't crack the code and find some ancient media relic. You discovered a show that never lost its affiliation with the wildly popular network HBO. Congratulations, I suppose. Certain episodes were moved from HBO Max as the season was deemed too repetitive, but the show never went away and has remained available on YouTube, cable, and streaming services since it was released. CrashBox was one of many HBO kid shows that encouraged learning and/or diversity. If HBO shows like Happily Ever After, I Spy, A Little Curious, or, of course, CrashBox had a little bit more commercial success, I genuinely think we would be living in a different world. But that's a different topic for a different day. Nearly every HBO children's show I remember aired several years before I was born, but almost every single one has made a lasting impression on me. People frequently share on TikTok what radicalized them, and for me, it was seeing the title, Happily Ever After, Fairy Tales for Every Child, on my television. I had to sit and think with that title. Weren't fairy tales already for every child? At 7 years old, I had my first reflection of racial injustice in media. I quickly became attached and thankful for shows that made room for every child. Although I Spy, Happily Ever After, and A Little Curious have all earned a special place in my heart, some shows are a little more special than others, and few things were more special to me than CrashBox. The Pacific Peach you know today was a magna cum laude graduate from Gonzaga University, but she didn't start that way. I was always neutral about school. It was always something that had to be done. But CrashBox inspired me to become a lover of school and knowledge. Most children need a source of motivation and excitement in the learning process. The competitive structure of CrashBox just so happened to be mine. We've hit an era of college students using ChatGPT to complete basic tasks. Imagine what innovators we could be meeting every single day if they had been learned into lifelong learning through seed planted by CrashBox. Unfortunately, it wasn't as popular as I think it deserved to be, and a far less exciting gadget is running the academic world. As an early 2000s baby with 3 early 90s siblings, I've always felt a little bit disconnected from my peers in a way that still haunts me to this day. Yes, I think peak technology was the pink flip phone my sisters had when I was in kindergarten. Don't you? In adulthood, I'm still chasing the high my siblings' old technology gave me, and I've spent hundreds of dollars on DVDs, CDs, a Discman, and various flip phones. 3 out of 4 are pink. The best part of being a toddler with significantly older siblings in the early 2000s is I can genuinely say I was a pop punk baby. I probably knew Fall Out Boy lyrics before I knew my own name. It was awesome. That being said, the biggest disconnect for me has always been my media interests. Growing up, I watched an abundance of DVDs and VHS tapes from the 90s. And I know what you're thinking. Some of the most popular children's movies are from the late 80s and early 90s. How does this cause any kind of disconnect? Okay, well, did you have Scared Silly, an official VHS from McDonald's? Because I did, and that's what I wanted to watch. Some of the things my siblings liked to watch with me were so obscure I was convinced I made them up as I got older. What's your opinion on Little Nemo? No, I didn't say Finding Nemo. I said Little Nemo. Adventures in Slumberland. What do you think about that? Right, you've never seen it probably. Yeah. If I had to guess, I found CrashBox in 2009, 10 years after its release. Something in me recognized it as somewhat off-putting, but the unique aesthetic captivated me. Looking back, I wonder if it was nostalgia for a time I didn't live in, but ultimately understood. It reminded me of the odd and slightly worn-out movies and shows I watched growing up. The gadgets and gizmos I loved growing up were now in my home, teaching me about Amelia Earhart. Its grimy overcoat wasn't off-putting, but endearing, and reminiscent of the look my siblings tried to achieve just a few years prior. If you happened to watch my last video, you know my adult personality has a record of being obsessive. But as I recall my childhood feelings towards CrashBox, I realize that this has been a long-term habit. CrashBox taught kids just like me fast facts about English, science, history, and encouraged critical thinking through math and riddles. And it affirmed the intelligence of young people.
And remind you how smart you really are.
I learned about Paul Revere, how ears work, the definition of revolting, and several other snippets of information before officially being taught them in school. CrashBox would offer riddles, word scrambles, true or false questions, math problems, and several multiple-choice quizzes for viewers to answer within a short time frame. Not only have I always been obsessive, I've always been competitive. I could not get over the fact that CrashBox was always beating me. I refused to be made a fool by a television show, so I did what any rational person would do. I kept returning to CrashBox, determined to win every game. Not to create another TikTok here, but my favorite show as a kid was CrashBox. I would cry when my sister told me I lost her idiot quiz, and low-key, I have finished half of my master's degree in 6 months. And that basically describes the kind of person I am. I was enticed on CrashBox by looks alone, but its promise of education is what kept me. I loved summers. Summers meant I could watch an episode of CrashBox every day. It only aired once or twice on weekends. Every other showing was while I was at school. The program layout made me excited to be sick on school days. When my sisters babysat me over the summer, they knew not to plan anything until I had already watched CrashBox. Occasionally, a friend would be sent to play with me for the day. Guess what we're gonna do? I would say with excitement, like the answer was any different from the last time I asked. Of course the answer was, watch CrashBox at 9 a.m. On weekends, I used to watch with my dad and see if he could beat me to answering the riddles and questions, and I'd feel so cool every time my child brain was faster than his adult mastermind. But now I know he probably wasn't paying attention. Not the way I was. Just like Little Nemo, no one ever knew what I was talking about when I mentioned the show later in life. To this day, I'm not sure I've ever physically met anyone who watched it in their childhood. Unlike Little Nemo, I never doubted its existence. There was too much information I learned for the show to be imagination. Did you know that baby seals are called pups? Thank you, Eddie Bull, for teaching me this. For every video labeling CrashBox as something negative, there's 3 more titled something along the lines of, "Does anyone remember CrashBox?" To which I internally scream, "Me, because I never forget anything." Which is true, by the way. I've been told I have the memory of an elephant since I was 3 years old. I remember the first time I heard the delightful harmonies of the Claymation trio in Think Tank. Those stellar voices haven't left my killer memory since 2009. Now thinking back to what I said before, I understand that CrashBox is niche, and a person's status of a true weirdo is not dependent on knowing or not knowing what it is. However, strong reactions arise when I show people this absolutely peak television show. Freaky, gross, weird, or as some may say, revolting, are just a few words I've heard in response to the show. I won't deny there are parts of it that are a little too much, even for myself. I wasn't a fan of revolting slob screen time, but I was willing to put up with it for the sake of learning new words. Regardless, to insist that the entire show is disturbing is simply not true. Like Totally Paige and Sage, Lens McCracken, cardboard cutout anchor person Dora Schmarney? That's what unsettles you? You've got soft, normal hands, brother. Any CrashBox hater probably thinks that Open Farmhouse is a good design, and that's not hate, that's just me pointing out inauthentic weird people. Diva, you are the blueprint. Please just own it. It's getting really annoying at this point. The enjoyable freaks in my life have a common reaction to CrashBox, which will hopefully become 2 common reactions when I finally meet someone who has organically been exposed to the show. Even if they've never seen it, they show appreciation for its eccentric style and obvious personality. I am so CrashBox crazy that I've shown it to people at parties and invited them to enjoy it with me as things settle down. Seeing if I can still win the games while inebriated brings back all the excitement from 15 years ago. The people I like the most seem to have the most positive reactions to my childhood interest. I hate that people don't see CrashBox for what it is. Everything people hate about it is what makes it stand out. Its style, while unconventional, is captivating and an excellent time capsule of how society viewed technology at the time. The content, while sometimes aggressive, inspires children to strive for new intellectual heights. CrashBox was cancelled and removed some episodes due to its repetitive nature. However, I think a show like this could be helpful in our world of academic panic. The youngest generation being the dumbest is a tale as old as time, but given the circumstances of the last 5 years, it might be true. Before COVID, 72% of American students were performing at grade level. As of 2023, it's only 53%. So bring back CrashBox, I say, with its quirky, competitive, and engaging nature. The young people yearn for Frutiger Arrow. Imagine a spin-off with the newer, old-tech look. I acknowledge the fact that everyone is entitled to their own perception of CrashBox, but when people automatically pass it off as disturbing, I feel like they don't see the competitive young academics it was made for. Where others see a freak show, I found my ideal learning environment. And in the words of my friend Sketch,
just 'cause you got eyes doesn't mean you always see.